This Solar Hunter build is one of the strongest builds in Destiny 2 in terms of just raw ability damage output and having infinite abilities without needing kills or even needing mods to keep them up. And this build will be much better in Lightfall with a new fragment that will grant restoration, and I'm super excited to add that in. Now the first thing I want to show you guys though is the ability rotation. So a specific order you should be using your abilities to make sure you are dealing the most damage you can, but also still coming out of a fight, and even a fight with a champion, with all your abilities ready to go again. And this is with no mods or kills, which is just pretty crazy to me. So I'm going to slow this gameplay down for you, and I want you to remember that an ignition on an enemy is considered an ability. And of course, we know that abilities feed our exotic, which then in turn feeds our ability loop. And I'm not sure how many people know that about ignitions, but we're going to set off 2 ignitions during this rotation of abilities, and those ignitions will grant our ability energy. So first we throw our grenade, then we use our melee ability, and this gives us a full grenade back. Now we throw our second grenade, and right after we throw it, the first ignition goes off from the 2 previous abilities. This grants a lot of ability energy and lets us throw a third grenade. So back-to-back grenades, then we dodge and the second ignition goes off, which is refilling our grenade once again. So the combo is basically grenade, melee, grenade, grenade, then dodge. And what this combo allows you to do is it sets off 2 different ignitions, throw 3 grenades, and 1 melee ability. So a lot of damage or ad clear depending on what you're doing. But more importantly, it allows us to have a full grenade charge and melee charge and about half of our dodge back after using all of these different abilities on a single champion. And I can't stress this enough that this is all without needing a kill or mods on the armor or solar wells, nothing that's giving any ability energy back. This is all just our subclass and our exotic doing all that work. So you need to be using a certain set of fragments to make this all work, so make sure to pay attention to that. And the second thing I want to talk about is Gunpowder Gamble. This does a lot more for the build than I think people realize or know about. Since we already went over how ignitions are ability energy, right? This plays right into it. First off, we all know it's super fun and just can clear rooms in this 1610 master content like this week's story mission for those Ascendant alloys. But second is that it counts as an ability to refund our grenade with our exotic. And if you don't shoot it out of the air and it sticks to an enemy, that first stick or hit counts as an ability for grenade energy. Then the ignition that it creates counts as another ability when it explodes to feed your grenade even more. So basically, just by throwing Gunpowder Gamble out, you can get 2 different procs of ability energy to your grenade. Also, if you throw it out fast enough like you see here, you can shoot it out of the air, and I guess the game doesn't really register that you used it or something, and you can get a second one instantly for free. So back-to-back exploding ignitions, which is pretty cool to see. And finally, Gunpowder Gamble works with ashes to assets, so by clearing a room with it, you can get a ton of super energy really quickly, as you can see in the gameplay. And then it also works with elemental ordnance, so you can spawn solar wells just by killing things with it, so it's basically a grenade. It can work with explosive well maker, so it does a lot of different things you can add to the overall build. That's why I always take Gunpowder Gamble with this Solar Hunter build, because it just plays more into the overall build, and let's be honest, just like the Titan Consecration move, this stick of dynamite is just so satisfying when you throw it out, shoot it out of the air, and watch the enemies just disappear. A true gunslinger ability and feeling for sure. Now for your abilities, these are really important because they make the whole build go. We want Gambler's Dodge as our class ability so we get a full melee refund when we dodge near an enemy. You want to take the Knife Trick Melee. This throws out 3 knives, and each individual knife will proc your exotic gauntlets that we're going to be using. So this just adds to ability energy and gives you the most ability energy back. So by far the best melee you can be choosing here. And then of course Trip Mine Grenade. This is a Trip Mine Grenade build, and our exotic plays into that. And remember, both our knife and our grenade are scorching targets when we hit them. For the 2 aspects, we're going to take Knock 'em Down, so your solar supers are enhanced. We're using Blade Barrage, so it launches more projectiles. And then at the bottom, we also have While Radiant, final blows with your equipped throwing knife fully refund your melee energy. So we can always have a melee up in easier content, but this is not as important. And then our second one is Gunpowder Gamble, defeating targets with abilities, solar debuffs, or solar weapons to charge up an improvised solar explosive. Throw a solar explosive that can be shot midair to cause an ignition. So the main way we're going to be getting this is just by our grenade and our melee, but if you happen to be using a solar weapon, you'll get it even more. Now we only get 3 fragment slots with this build, but all 3 of these are pretty mandatory. The first one is Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies radiant. A 25% weapon damage buff to you and all your allies all the time is just great. And then by having that fragment on, it plays into the aspect of Knock 'em Down, which is While Radiant, final blows with your equipped throwing knife full refund your melee energy. So that's how we can always get a melee back, just by throwing our melee and killing something. Next we have Ember of Ashes. You apply more scorch stacks to targets. This is really important because it allows our knife trick and our trip mine, that one combo, to cause an ignition. If you land your 3 throwing knives of the knife trick and the 1 trip mine grenade, that will cause an ignition on its own. And we want those ignitions to happen to get more ability energy back quicker. And then lastly we have Ember of Singeing. Your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. We're always scorching targets with this build, and that just feeds that class ability to be able to dodge and get a full refund on your melee when you're dealing with high health targets. For the stats on the build, of course 100 resilience for that damage reduction, and next I would try to get higher mobility. So in the gameplay I had 70 mobility, and then you want to push your discipline up third as high as possible. Now for the weapons on the build, again, doesn't really matter. A solar weapon only helps because that can add to gunpowder gamble. And then if you do have something with incandescent and demolitionist, that's always a bonus. Demolition will give you grenade energy, and incandescent will scorch targets after they die, which means you'll get more class ability energy because of the fragment we're running. Now our exotic of choice is Ya Amkara's Spine. The armor perk here is Witch Dragon's Teeth. Increased trip mine grenade duration and blast radius. Ability damage grants trip mine grenade energy. And remember, that ability damage comes from multiple sources, not just our grenade, not just our melee, but also from ignitions that go off and from gunpowder gamble because it is an ignition. Also, when you throw trip mine grenades at your feet or close to enemies, it doesn't hurt you. That's the perk that young Ahamkara's Spine has that it doesn't say. And we also have intrinsic fastball as well. You throw your grenades much quicker with this. Now for the mods on the build, on our helmet, we're going to take elemental ordnance. So every time we kill something with our grenade, we're going to spawn a solar well, and then also ashes to assets just to feed our super and get that super back as quick as possible. On the gauntlets, we're taking bountiful wells, so we double up our well generation mods, and then I just had champion mods on. Hopefully in Lightfall that'll change because we won't need to slot champion mods in there anymore. On the chest piece I had melee well maker, so every time we get a kill with our melee and our grenade we are making 2 solar wells. On my boots I had well of life. Well of life is the only way that you heal with this build. It's our only source of healing. We can't run healing grenade or anything else, but when Lightfall does drop, they've already teased the new fragment that's going to grant restoration. So if you can add restoration with this build, it's going to be so good. And then in our class item, we're going to run Elemental Time Dilation. It's going to make Well of Life last 15 seconds instead of the normal 10 seconds. That's just a super nice quality of life because we want to be healing all the time. We're also running Double Utility Kickstart just to feed that dodge to make sure we always have it available to reproc our melee and get it back instantly. I hope you guys found something new in this video on that ability rotation or the ignitions, how they work with ability regen, and how Gunpowder Gamble can play into it. I really enjoy this hunter build, and I really enjoy Gunpowder Gamble, and I know some people don't like it because it only gives 1 fragment slot, and I know some people blow themselves up with it sometimes, but if you practice with it and get decent with it, you will enjoy it as much as I do. I promise you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.